Hey, what's up? It's Jim, and today I'm going to talk about how I would write the reboot to Friday the 13th. This is a movie crap, I guess. So, obviously, last weekend, and still probably currently, Halloween is making a ton of money. And I'm sure during this week, someone or whomever owns the rights to Friday the 13th probably went, dude, we gotta settle this shit and get one of them Jason movies out in theaters real quick. Because that is how Friday the 13th works. It's a very gimmicky, silly, kind of roller coaster ride franchise. That's how Sean Cunningham designed it, and so forth. It always takes on things that are popular at the time. It takes on new concepts. It takes on new ideas. It takes on new gimmicks. Basically just gimmicks. That's why, in some ways, it made sense for them to want to do a found footage Friday the 13th. I don't think it would have worked just because if you're having a Friday the 13th every 2 years, I think people would have accepted it a little more. But I think also like a lot of found footage movies sort of suck, so I think most people are like, please don't do that to us. In a theory way, I get it. In a like actually wanting to see it, I like sort of don't. So since Halloween had the idea of like, let's do a reboot and erase all the sequels except for the original. Now you can't really do that with Friday the 13th for two reasons. One, the first one's just about Jason's mom, and you can't in any case do a Friday the 13th film without Jason. Jason is just part of it with the hockey mask, has to be in them. So that's why when they did the reboot, it made sense in 2009 or whatever that had the hockey mask. Like, no studio would let you make a Friday the 13th about Jason's mom. You know, it's just like not gonna happen, all right? Basically what we're going to do is understand what Friday the 13th is it's a franchise, more so than Halloween. Friday the 13th became what it was because of the franchise. You get the first one, which is really good, probably still the best one, and then with his mom, the second one with Jason, but he's wearing the bag over his head in the second one, and then in the third one he gets the hockey mask. So we're going to have Jason with the hockey mask. So basically you kind of have to acknowledge at least 3 movies, but I think since 4 is probably one of the better sequels, I don't know, I personally like it more than 2, but I'd say it's about even in a lot of cases. I would say, like, let's have Final Chapter was the last movie in this continuity, and everything else is erased. You know, Freddy vs. Jason, all of it. What you also need is a returning character. So, who I would have is Tommy Jarvis. Tommy Jarvis is kind of like the only real character from the Friday the 13th film that people have any real attachment to. He was in 3 films played by 3 different actors of different ages, which never made sense. What I would do is basically, since 5 and 6 don't count, Tommy Jarvis would be played again by Corey Feldman. We would actually get Corey Feldman back for this, sort of like how you had Jamie Lee Curtis come back. I know Corey Feldman's like super weird all the time, but whatever, it'll be fun. And people will like that because you're getting back to what the Friday the 13th franchise is really about, is the 80s. It's really like an 80s franchise, and that's where it lives. So here's how basically I would do it. Tommy Jarvis has moved on. You know, the thing that happened at the end of Friday the 13th, of the final chapter happened. They basically like really seriously maimed him, but where they can like sort of retcon the end a little bit. He went off into the woods and he hasn't been seen since. I don't want him being in a mental institution because that's like too close to Halloween. So Jason just disappeared into the woods. They looked forever to find him, and it's always bothered Tommy Jarvis. But Tommy Jarvis has moved on and become a serious makeup person in Hollywood. Tom Savini can totally do a cameo. It'll be awesome and be like his buddy or something like that. He's working on a major movie. He could be working on a Nightmare on Elm Street movie or something, which would be funny. You know, you have Robert Englund there, have a lot of cameos, do a whole like Pee Wee Herman walking around the studio kind of thing with a lot of, you know, cameos and stuff. And people who would be like, I would love to just, you know, show up and do 2 minutes in a Friday the 13th film, can show up in that, have all the fun you want, show how successful he is. He can like probably not have an Oscar because he's clearly doing horror movies, but you know, he's doing something. You could have him be at a convention, you could have him be at anything. I would prefer he's like actually like on a set doing a sort of movie. I think it should be, you know, maybe like a lesser slasher franchise than the main 3, but something like that. It would be cool, right? After you do that, he gets an email from a friend who, because he lives sort of near Camp Crystal Lake, and a friend who has brought back Camp Crystal Lake for a while now, and Corey Feldman could say, yeah, I heard they brought it back and it's been doing fine, and we would love it. I heard you were going to be in town sort of soon. If you could do like sort of a makeup sort of tutorial sort of thing at the camp, you know, that would be great. And he's like, sure, I would love to do that. Well, at the same time, there's been sort of like people have seen something in the woods, and the legend of Jason Voorhees is coming back again. People are like, oh, maybe Jason Voorhees is in the woods, maybe. And people are like, no, he disappeared. Everyone thinks he like died or drowned, or that's what the cops keep saying to people. That's what the newspaper, let's say there's like a news report about it, and the police are like, we have believed that he died a long time ago. They could say it was 35 years ago. We haven't heard anything from him since. since we do not believe for him to be still alive. In 1984, we searched the entire woods and they can show footage and stuff and just set all that up, basically what happened. Corey Feldman comes back. Let's say Tom Savini's with him because I sort of like that idea. Him and Tom Savini are there together. They're going to do this tutorial. They were going to stay, at an Airbnb or something, but Camp Crystal Lake has decided to let them stay there and have, a bunk that they use for visitors and stuff like that. As a reference to what Tom Savini actually did while he was shooting the original Friday the 13th, he can have a DVD of Barbarella because they actually had an early VCR and all they had was like Barbarella and something else. They should just have those. That'll be cute. I will get a chuckle out of it. Since this is just me babbling to myself, I can, whatever. So he's there and he hears the rumors. He sees the thing on TV, Corey Feldman or Tommy Jarvis, and he's a little freaked out, but he does makeup and all that stuff. And then when he's doing makeup, one of the kids brings up the incident at the end of Friday the 13th, the final chapter, and Corey Feldman gets a little freaked out and answers it in kind of like a grown-up way of like, kid, shut the fuck up or whatever. Tom Savini's like looking at him like, whoa, you brought that up? Like, we don't talk about that, man. And all that happens, and Jason Voorhees slowly realizes that Tommy Jarvis is back at Camp Crystal Lake and decides he's gonna go cut some shit up. I don't know how he finds it. He just sees him. One thing I would definitely bring back, and especially when Tommy Jarvis gets back to Camp Crystal Lake, in the first Friday the 13th where they have the camera have the POV thing, which is a take on what they did in the opening shot of Halloween, but it always had this creepy feeling like you never know if it was Jason's POV or if it was the camera just doing stuff, and I would do a lot of that. I don't know who would direct this, but this is whatever. Somebody who liked Friday the 13th. I would want references to all the Friday the 13th movies, all that stuff would be great. So we'd have the camera doing that kind of POV thing, so you never were sure as a viewer, like, is Jason going to sneak up? And you'd have this tension, like you never were sure what was going to make him come to Camp Crystal Lake, but you knew he was around. You could have like a scene of kids smoking pot in the woods and they could see sort of something and they weren't sure, and like you could kind of play with you like, hey, maybe it's just going to be the movie of Tommy Jarvis doing a makeup tutorial and there's not Jason there is, but you know what I mean. Then he'll start killing people, and like, let's say someone who would disappear for days and smoke weed in the woods, and they kind of didn't make too much of it, but then they're starting to get worried. Tommy Jarvis starts to get worried, and then Jason starts straight up like killing people on Camp Crystal Lake. Tommy Jarvis, he'll be Tom Jarvis in this or whatever, but I think his friend who knew him from back in the day who runs Camp Crystal Lake, we'll call him Tommy, it'll be cute. Tom Jarvis, Tom Savini, whatever his character will be named, and this group of teens will have to like get away from Jason. But the fun thing will be is that since, by the way, Friday the 13th never did a Scream type of movie. Jason Lives was sort of like a camp kind of film, but you never really had the Scream type one. So this one, like Tommy Jarvis and Tom Savini and the group of teens will try to avoid Jason and sort of know all the slasher tricks. So it'll be kind of like a more fun, kind of self-aware sort of thing. They'll kill teens in their party. The only teen, I'm sort of debating on whether you should kill the teen who brings up the thing. I sort of like, you want him to die. I think that's a very Friday the 13th thing. Like, you have an annoying person and you're like, oh man, I hope they totally get slashed. I wouldn't mind that. I also wouldn't mind if he lived. And Tommy Jarvis, in the end, does find a way to take out Jason, preferably how he went down in 6. I think that would be cool, but something along those lines. That's how I would basically do it. You'd bring Tommy Jarvis back, Tom Savini, you'd have him back at Camp Crystal Lake, you'd have all the mystery, all the kind of recapturing what they did in the early Friday the 13th films that people fell in love with, and ignore, the super zombie Jason and things like that. He would absolutely have the mask, you'd have him killing people on Camp Crystal Lake, you'd try to do a very lean kind of Friday the 13th movie, and it would all take place there. You would only have about 2 different plot lines. I would have, however, whoever got Tommy Jarvis to come there would totally get killed. I don't know who that would be. It could be somebody from the final chapter, or somebody from the other films. You could have people, the cast, could be stacked with people from the first 4 or from any of the Friday the 13th films. It doesn't matter to me, but whoever will do it. I wouldn't mind if Kevin Bacon was in it somehow. I wouldn't mind it if Cronenberg could come back. He was in Jason X, which is of course his best acting role. Cronenberg could be directing the movie. Tom Jarvis is doing makeup on. There you go. I think Kevin Bacon should do something. You should get as much of that cast as you can back. I think it would be a fun thing for Friday the 13th, and I think it's something that would be quite natural. You could also do that with a particular cast member and Nightmare on Elm Street as well, but I'm not going to get into that today. I just thought this would be kind of a fun little exercise of how I would do it if I were in charge of writing the Friday the 13th reboot, reimagine, what are these called? Like Lego sequel, kind of restarting retcon movies. That's how I would do it. I would just acknowledge the first 4. The rest are fine. I like Jason Lives quite a bit. I probably like that more than 3, to be honest with you. I put that on the topper tier. The rest are like, even Manhattan is mainly Jason on a boat. But this Friday the 13th would be kind of a cool way to retcon it, bring him back to Camp Crystal Lake, make Tommy Jarvis like be the makeup kind of monster movie obsessed kid, horror movie obsessed kid fighting his way through a horror movie. Like, that's awesome. Like, with Tom Savini, that's fun. Like, they could like know everything that's coming, and Jason could surprise him if he does a jump scare. He'd be like, oh, jump scares are always lame, or something like that. Like, that could be fun, and I think that would be a good place to take the Friday the 13th films, and it'd be natural to do it with Tommy Jarvis, and Tom Savini could be along too. That'd be cool. And don't kill either of them, but I feel like someone would probably kill Tom Savini because he's like the other kid, but I think you could have a lot of fun with it. Anyway, this was just kind of like a fun little video kind of thing, and it's not really criticism or anything. And I'm sure they're probably going to announce they're going to do some Friday the 13th movie soon. They should. They've been talking about it. It would be the 13th Friday the 13th movie, and be cool to kind of recapture the magic in some way if they ever get around to making this 13th Friday the 13th movie. I have actually reviewed every Friday the 13th film. I did it on different Friday the 13th. Every Friday the 13th I would review one. I reviewed all of them, so you can check that out in a playlist. Thank you very much for watching. I might do another video like this sort of soon. So if you would like to talk about how you would reboot the Friday the 13th series, or what you thought of my reboot of the Friday the 13th series, then comment below and subscribe if you would like to.